Good morning, Mashi.
Good evening, Dennis. It's a double banger, baby.
A
Same
double banger.
outfits, same coffee cup. Let's go.
I know he pays attention to that kind of stuff. It is your day today.
It is. And Dennis, this is one I think you'll see. I often talk about the effect that Doctor Who has on me. And how, I mean, I've grown up with it. I still watch it. I was just rewatched a bunch of episodes on Thanksgiving. And so it speaks to me. And I think this is a quote from the Fourth Doctor that really captures how I feel about life, particularly in my age, although I always felt this way. And we've talked a lot about this with gamesmanship and playing games and, keeping that young. But the Doctor has a quote where he's reacting to being called immature and childish. He says, there's no point in being a grown-up if you can't act a little childish sometimes.
I firmly believe that 100%. I think being grown up and mature is the vegetables you eat throughout the day to let you eat the ice cream of having a little bit of frivolity. Like, this is something I firmly believe. Nikki and I would do something a lot where she'll say a joke or something and I'll play along with it. And we're just doing a bit for an imaginary third party. You know what I mean?
Same. Oh my God. We do it all the time here. All the time.
5 or 6 lines deep and you're like, who is this for? Like, there's no.
And then you just start laughing, right? And then you just kind of break down laughing. It's the best.
100%.
I think it's weird how we see age changes so much of how we see things. Age is the great kind of seasoner of perspective. And when I was young, I really saw that quote as, oh, ice cream for dinner, M&Ms all day, really this idea that when I'm an adult, I can have ice cream for dinner. I can stay up as late as I want. I can do whatever I want, and as I grow older now, and I guess I am an adult, I start to look at it more and more like the charade of maturity. I think, and again, obviously I work in gaming. I have the privilege of, kind of working with my best friend, and I control, I control a lot of my own schedule and control, to some degree, I mean, less and less so recently, my own duties and my own schedule. But and we've been through a lot when you were there in terms of changing the companies and laying people off and all that. So there's serious stuff that happens too. I don't want to make it all like, sunshines and unicorn poop.
But that stuff is what gives the sillier stuff power. It's what makes it valuable. Like, genuinely.
It is.
And it's not about having ice cream for breakfast and eschewing your responsibilities, but it is about sometimes, even if you're in your 40s, building a blanket fort and having that be fine. And it is that much sweeter because you're looking at P&L sheets the next day or whatever.
God, that's so true, by the way. I mean, the weekends, I don't know how somehow the weekends in my 40s have become even more important than I feel like they were when I was going to school. But what has come to light for me more and more now is I do think this idea, and you kind of look at this stuffed shirt image of America from the 1950s and even as recent as the 80s. And I think still now in Wall Street. And it's just like, I see these people who are quote unquote professionals. And it's just like, give me a break, man. Hey, come on. This is all a show. You're just doing this, right? Come on. Some people do live that life. And I don't mean to impugn you, but I just think there's a lot more to it. And I think there is a vision of adulthood. And I think, I don't know if we've discussed this before. I've discussed how I think this is really when we come of age and lose a bit of our innocence from childhood to adolescence to adulthood, is the idea that the adults have no idea. They don't have the answers. We think they do when we're children. No, I don't know. I didn't get a mythical book of answers. I ain't got none of them.
I was talking this the other day with a friend of mine, the idea that when you're 5 or 6 and you look at your parents or other adults, and like you said, you think that they have this, innate understanding of how the world works and what to do in any given situation. And then it kind of creeps up on you. Like, my parents were, I'm older. I'm about the same age now as my parents were when they had me. Right. And that was after they'd like fled a country and had careers and all this stuff. I'm like, man, I don't feel like I know anything what I'm doing like on a day-to-day basis. And I think about them, I'm like, they were exactly the same. You just do these things and solve these problems because there's no other way, right? That is what has to be done. And like we talked about in our previous episode, you make it look like you did it on purpose, and that's the beauty of it. And that the idea that there's this like that adulthood is this one-way street that once you cross into it, you can never come back is tragic. Like you said, like talking about people on Wall Street, people who are like is, to some people, and I think it's a little bit sad, is aspirational, of being this like serious person and not having any element of like kiddiness in yourself anymore. And I think I genuinely do think that's a little bit tragic.
I agree. And I think that our generation or my generation, I think started to break out of that a bit. And I think the generation coming up is they're just over that idea. Thank God. Thank God. I don't lament that at all. I think the seriousness with which, and maybe every young generation feels this way, the seriousness with which the adults treat things is laughable. But as an adult now, which even in my own mind, as I say that, it's like, God, I really am an adult now, but it doesn't feel that way on a regular basis. It not only is it to me laughable, it is damaging, actively damaging. Like, because I think it's a veneer. Again, I think it's a facade. I've used that term so many times, but I guess maybe and it's funny because we record 2 eps, and I guess it's not the same conversation everyone else, but to you and I, it's kind of the same conversation. This veneer of perfection, that those answers are there. This invulnerability that serious-minded adults want to project. Everything's under control. We've got this handled. Everything's fine.
Control is the killer thing, right? Because I think it makes you make a promise to yourself that you have a lot more control over your life and your surroundings than you actually do. And when you feel like you have control over something, or tell yourself, or tell this lie to other people by putting up this facade, and then you start to believe it, when things that are out of your control start to go wrong, start to break down, which invariably happens to everybody, it's very damaging to your sense of self. As if you believe yourself to be this like stalwart person who has everything in control, is an adult, is very serious, can handle anything. You're not. Nobody is, and that's okay. And accepting that little bit of crack, that little bit of fallibility into your day-to-day life sets you up to be ultimately much more resolute when rainy days do come.
Of course. And I mean, have fun when laugh and have fun and enjoy the frustrations and moments that happen in life. It's okay that the tide came in and washed away the sandcastle. It was always going to. That was half the point. But we lose that.
I think it's a very brittle way to live. Like there's a reason that tall buildings, skyscrapers flex and bend in the wind. It's because if they didn't, they would collapse. And pretending that you don't have to, and also allowing yourself to enjoy flexing and bending means that makes you much more stable in the long run.
It is. You will endure in that way. But there's a way also that when we think about children. And I've steered it this way. There's this lack of maturity we talk about, like laughing and playing, all that. But keep in mind, children are in a growth phase. They are growing. They're like sponges, taking in all the information, seeing things for the first time, tasting things for the first time, experiencing things for the first time. And when we say childlike, I think we capture the euphoria, but we don't take it seriously. It's fun. No sense, but there's no sense of importance or gravity to it. And I think that's the important part of learning and growing. And so when I say there's no point in being a grown-up if you can't act childish sometimes, I think that the other key component of that is continuing to grow. Because this idea of adulthood, this veneer we put on where everything, that is the illusion of completeness as well. Well, okay, this is it. I'm an adult. I'm in control. I'm complete. That's just never the case. We should always be growing. And I think that childlike mind, that beginner's mind, that's a Zen concept of like having the child mind, the beginner's mind, so you can always learn to be receptive to it, is so important, especially when we're growing up. When we're children, we take it for granted. That's just what we do. That is life. But when we're adults, we shut a lot of that down. We stop that. And it's not just about having fun. It's not just about not taking things seriously, but it's about opening your mind up to continue to grow and see things through that lens of childhood. Maybe even if it's the same thing we've looked at all day, every day for the last 5 years, taking another look at it from a new perspective as I sit in this room, we have a new table here, and I'm looking this whole weekend in this room, in this spot at this table, because I never spent time in this room looking at it this way. And it's awesome, and we bought a bunch of plants to decorate the room differently because like, wait a minute, this is where our table is. We're going to be sitting here a lot. We haven't paid attention to this perspective in this room we've occupied in a house for 2 months, 3 months now. So, these things can happen, and they should, and you need to embrace them with an eye towards growth and childlike euphoria and experimentation.
Leading in instead of leading away. Well, Mashi, I think as you go into your day, I hope you, and I don't even need to say I hope, I know you well enough to say there's no shortage of childlike euphoria and wonder in your heart. I hope you approach the day with that as you see fit.